What if the lost colony of Roanoke never truly vanished, but was hiding in plain sight all along? For centuries, historians searched for answers, yet a new theory could finally change. In the summer of 1587, more than 100 English men, women, and children set sail across the Atlantic with a dream: to build a new life in the New World. Led by John White, an artist and explorer, these settlers were not hardened soldiers or adventurers, but ordinary families hoping for a fresh start. Their destination was Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. It was part of Queen Elizabeth I's vision to expand England's power and compete with Spain's vast empire in the Americas. When the settlers arrived, they found an untamed wilderness. The forests were thick, the land was fertile, and the sea teemed with fish, but survival was not easy. The island had scorching summers, hurricanes that battered the coast, and swarms of insects that tormented them. Even worse, they were not alone. The land already belonged to powerful Native American tribes. Some tribes were open to trade and cautious friendship, while others were deeply suspicious, remembering how previous English expeditions had brought violence and disease. Despite the hardships, the colonists tried to create a community. They built houses, planted crops, and attempted to maintain peace with nearby tribes. One of the most remarkable events occurred that year when Virginia Dare, John White's granddaughter, became the first English child born in the Americas. For the colonists, her birth was a symbol of hope, proof that this was not just a temporary outpost, but the beginning of a permanent settlement. Yet, beneath that hope was growing fear. Supplies were running dangerously low. The settlers were cut off from England, thousands of miles across a stormy ocean. Their food was dwindling, tools were breaking, and sickness spread through the camp. Some of the native tribes, once cautiously welcoming, began refusing to trade. Tension, hunger, and uncertainty weighed heavily on the colony. As the situation worsened, the settlers turned to John White. They begged him to return to England and bring back the supplies and reinforcements they desperately needed. White agreed, though it meant leaving behind his family, including his newborn granddaughter. In August 1587, he boarded a ship and set sail for England, promising to return quickly with help. But fate had other plans. When John White reached England, Europe was in chaos. War had erupted between England and Spain, and the seas were filled with Spanish warships. Every English vessel was being called upon to fight. White's pleas for ships to rescue the colony fell on deaf ears. The nation's survival came before the settlers of Roanoke. What was supposed to be a short trip for supplies turned into years of delay. John White could do nothing but wait and hope that his people would endure. Meanwhile, on Roanoke Island, the settlers, men, women, and children, were left completely on their own, abandoned in a strange and hostile land. And when White finally returned, 3 long years later, what he found would shock him and spark one of history's greatest mysteries. When John White finally secured passage back to the New World in 1590, 3 long years had passed since he left Roanoke. The voyage across the Atlantic was difficult, but nothing could have prepared him for what he would find upon his return. On August 18, 1590, the very day of his granddaughter Virginia Dare's 3rd birthday, White's ship anchored off the coast of Roanoke Island. As he and his men rowed to shore, they strained their eyes, searching for smoke from fires, movement, or any sign of life. But the colony was eerily silent. The familiar sound of children playing, tools striking wood, and voices carrying through the air was gone. The settlement was deserted. The houses and wooden fortifications still stood, though weather-worn and overgrown with weeds. But there were no settlers, not a single man, woman, or child. It was as if the entire colony had simply vanished. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle, no evidence of attack. Everything was just empty. Then White saw something carved into a tree, the word CROATOAN. It was not a random scrawl, but clearly etched by someone who wanted it to be found. Nearby, the letters CRO were carved into another tree. To White, this was both a clue and a mystery. Before he had left for England years earlier, White had told the settlers to carve a symbol or word if they were forced to move, and to add a cross if they were in danger. There was no cross. This meant, at least according to the agreement, that the colonists had relocated voluntarily. The word CROATOAN pointed to CROATOAN Island, modern-day Hatteras Island, about 50 miles south, home to a Native American tribe that had once been friendly to the English. Filled with hope, White urged his men to sail there immediately. But fate betrayed him again. A violent storm rolled in, battering the coast and threatening to wreck their ship. Supplies were running low, the crew was exhausted, and after several failed attempts, the captain refused to continue the search. White begged to be allowed just a little more time, but the decision was final. Heartbroken, he was forced to abandon the colony, his family, his granddaughter, everyone, never knowing what had become of them. White returned to England carrying only questions, and those questions have haunted historians for more than 400 years. The settlers of Roanoke were never seen again. The disappearance of more than 100 men, women, and children from Roanoke has remained one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. For centuries, scholars, archaeologists, and adventurers have searched for answers, but none have been conclusive. Here are the most famous theories. 1. The CROATOAN theory. The word carved into the tree, CROATOAN, suggests the colonists may have relocated to CROATOAN Island, modern-day Hatteras Island. Some historians believe they lived among the friendly CROATOAN tribe, gradually merging into their community. But no definitive evidence has ever been found. 2. Conflict with other tribes. The region was home to several native tribes, not all of them friendly to the English. Some historians suggest the colonists may have been attacked or taken captive. Yet, no mass graves or signs of violence were discovered at the Roanoke site. 3. Starvation or disease. Life in the New World was brutal. Food shortages, harsh winters, and new diseases could have wiped out the settlers. But if that were the case, why were there no remains? 4. Spanish attack. At the time, Spain and England were bitter rivals. Some theorize that Spanish forces destroyed the colony, leaving no survivors. However, there are no records of such an attack. 5. The Dare Stones. In the 20th century, mysterious stones were discovered, supposedly inscribed by Eleanor Dare, John White's daughter. They described the colony's fate and Virginia Dare's tragic death. But most experts consider these stones to be hoaxes. Despite countless excavations and modern DNA testing, the truth remains hidden. Artifacts discovered on Hatteras Island hint that some colonists may indeed have joined the CROATOAN tribe. Yet the complete story of Roanoke settlers, including the fate of Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America, may never be known. The Lost Colony of Roanoke endures as a haunting reminder of the dangers of exploration, the fragility of human survival, and the mysteries that history refuses to give up.